It's not often talked about, but there is a treasure trove of telephone history available at the corner of 21st and M Streets in downtown Lincoln.
At the Frank Woods Telephone Museum, more than 500 vintage phones tell the story of the telephone in southeast Nebraska. Our Lance Schwartz joins us now with the latest edition of Lance's Journal. Lance?
Thanks, guys. From the telegraph to texting, the history of telecommunications in America can be downright fascinating. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876, and the Bell telephone system started in Lincoln in 1882. In 1904, Frank Woods founded what would soon become the Lincoln Telephone and Telegraph Company.
It's the only telephone museum in Nebraska.
The Frank H. Woods Telephone Museum has been open to the public in Lincoln since 1996. But LT&T started collecting memorabilia for the museum nearly a century ago.
It started out in the 1920s when the company began to collect around the area old telephones to celebrate their 25th anniversary, which would have been in 1929, the year I was born. I just shouldn't say that.
Very good year. Al Farmer is a volunteer at the museum after having worked for LT&T for nearly 30 years.
It's a very, very historical thing, really, if you realize how the telephone got developed and what it's turned into.
Al is a big believer in preserving the past.
I think it's really, really important to Lincoln and to Lancaster County and to southeast Nebraska because a lot of this collection represents telephones that were used in this area. This is one of our favorites, this piece right here. This is called a vanity set, and normally you'd find these in a hotel or in a rich person's home because you and I couldn't afford one.
But even I might have been able to afford one of these.
We call them candlestick phones. Officially, they were always referred to as upright desk. This is probably our earliest one. It goes back to 1897. These are some coin collector phones.
By 1902, there were 81,000 payphones in the United States.
It takes a silver dollar and a half a dollar.
It sounds to me like the job of a telephone operator in the early days was quite challenging.
But to put a quarter in, the operator has to have good enough hearing to recognize that, or she collects too much or not enough.
Eventually, phones got a lot more exciting to look at, but it would come at a cost.
There was an additional monthly charge if you wanted a colored phone.
It's safe to say
there's been a lot of changes over the years.
Especially when you consider that it all got started with a couple of tin cans and some string. The Telephone Museum is open every Sunday from 1 to 4, excluding major holidays. And if you'd like to arrange a group tour, give the museum a call and they'll get you connected. And what do you think Alexander Graham Bell would think of this fancy little invention?
Don't think he'd believe it.
You won't believe it. You can call anywhere in the world and it has the answer to every question. Who'd have thunk it?
To think you'd have to go and sit at a desk to make a phone call at some point in history, and now your phone call just sits in your pocket.
And colored phones were like a big thing too.
It really makes you think how far we've come in 130 years. And it really makes you think, how about the next century? Where will we be, or they, be then?
Wow.
All up here, maybe?
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, Lance.
Thanks.
We'll update your forecast next.